Daniel, this looks like a pretty serious remodel you got going on here.
Yeah, not only that, I'm living here with my whole family the entire time.
What? Literally your family's inside while this remodel's going on?
Yep, that's right.
Oh my gosh, an inside out remodel sponsored by our friends at Rockwool. Let's get going.
Yeah, they are not gonna be expecting us.
I don't think so. It's a long drive.
Here, we'll let them know we're coming.
Okay, we already shot the intro. We're about to shoot a video and a big black
Nice
truck
branding and
drives
all.
up.
Who is this?
What is going on here?
Hey, someone said there was building going on.
Is that Rockwool I smell?
Steve from Boston and Zach from New Jersey crashing our YouTube video. I already did the intro, guys. What are you doing?
What are you guys doing here?
You're crashing my
Good to see you.
video.
What you got going on here? Oh, just a little renovation.
Passive house retrofit. How can we not want to be here?
It sounds pretty dang cool, doesn't it?
It sounds really cool.
All right, now for real, let's get going. Daniel, what is the scoop on this project, dude? This looks like serious work going on here.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent sized project, I would say. So we bought this house about 4 years ago with the intention of renovating it at some point. And yeah, we kind of hired an architect, looked at all our options of what we can do, and that brought us here today with this big renovation, a whole house renovation with a couple of additions in key parts of the house.
Holy cow. So 60s house, 70s house?
It was built in 1977.
Okay, and what is the brown siding we're seeing over there?
Yeah, so it's cedar, painted cedar siding, run vertically. That's aged not so gracefully and offers a lot of air into the house.
I bet it does. And is there sheathing behind that as well?
No, it's just tar paper.
Okay,
tar
so
paper
tar
and then
paper
framing.
on studs. And then were the walls insulated, I'm assuming, if it was built in the 70s?
There is some insulation in the walls, yeah.
Okay, and what was that before? Can you tell what that insulation
Yeah, I
was?
think it's old mineral wool.
Okay, with a vapor barrier or some type of craft facing?
It's got a paper facing on it, that's right, yeah.
And you'll also notice, interestingly enough, Zach, you pointed this out, that craft facing is towards the outside, right?
Right, which
a little
is so
different
odd.
from you coming from New Jersey, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange to see a house without sheathing too. I've never seen that before.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, quick building science lesson. We want our vapor retarder on the warm side of the wall, which is hard to do, right? Sometimes it's cold in Texas, sometimes it's hot in
Right.
Texas. We do end up air conditioning 9 months out of the year or so. So if you're gonna use some type of a retarder, you really don't want a barrier, but a retarder like craft facing, you'd have that towards the outside. But what's so crazy about this, Daniel, is that you're living here, right?
Yeah, that's
While this
right.
is going on?
Yeah, my whole family is inside, not currently, but yeah, we're kind of making it work. And we sort of figure out a process so that we didn't have to move out, but we could still accomplish all of the work. And so far it's working.
So talk me through that process. What does that look like?
Yeah, so what we're doing is kind of working from the outside in, right? We're pulling off the siding, pulling off the old insulation, but keeping the sheetrock where we can.
Okay.
And so that allows us to live. It gets a little bit uncomfortably warm at times, but it really hasn't been bad. The AC is cranking away in there. We've masked off some areas with plastic, and so that's kept the dust away. And so far it's working. My wife works, so she's not here during the day. And of course my kids are either at camp or at school.
Yeah.
And so it's not much of a disturbance.
That's wild. And you're actually going to get this passive house certified, which Steve, you were one of the first ones to do
we did the first certified passive house retrofit in the U.S. probably about 10 years ago. And you know, I noticed there's not a lot has changed in the methodology. It appears that you're going to do a chainsaw retrofit here, basically cut the wall back to the roof and fold that insulation over and then add on whatever overhangs and such on the outside.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what we're doing. So our zip will come up the wall and also be on the roof deck, and we'll be able to perfectly seal that, air seal that across, and then also have that continuous insulation.
Yeah, that'll work out really, really well. I mean, we did that at your house and it worked out really, really well also. It's always a win to do that. And then we're putting insulation on the outside of this.
Yeah, that's right. So there'll be some Rockwool comfort board on the outside.
So chainsaw retrofit meets perfect wall meets passive house.
There's a lot going on.
You got a lot going on.
Where we can see a little better, let's jump up there. We'll meet you over there.
So just got all this lumber over here. What kind of structural work are you doing on this house aside from the exterior?
Yeah, so these 2x12s are actually for the floor joists. The original house was built with all solid lumber, and it's a little bouncy. So we're sistering, the engineer spec'd out sistering up all of the floor joists. That's what the 2x12s are for there.
Interesting. And are you doing any modifications to any of the openings? I see all the new windows back here.
Yeah, so some of the openings we're basically just swapping out window for window, but we did do a lot of additional design work where we are kind of modernizing the look of the home. So we are adding some new windows in places and also adding some square footage as well.
I look to me like, Daniel, you may have kept the drywall in place even where you reframed windows. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. So there is, on the back side, there is a new window and the drywall is still there. So what we'll come do is when we're ready to install that window, we'll just cut the drywall out to the specific location. And that way, that drywall is the barrier between inside and outside while my daughter is still living in that room.
So did you just take a Sawzall and just cut those
Yeah.
sheetrock nails off
Yeah.
in between the stud and the drywall? Is
Yeah,
that right?
that's exactly right. The guys carefully kind of went around and just cut it out.
How cool is that?
And it creates a little bit of damage on the inside, but just small patchwork.
Yeah. And I noticed on this gable side, you didn't cut any of the sheathing out. What was the idea behind that?
Oh yeah, so that's again protection until we can put the windows in. So that when it rains, obviously we don't want water coming in the house and we don't want the heat coming in and out of the house. So we just covered up those openings until we're ready to put the windows in.
Gotcha. Talk to me about the Rockwool a little bit. They sponsor the video. We've used their product a lot. We like it.
Yeah.
Why Rockwool on this project? What was the reasoning, and also what products are you using?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rockwool is a product that I've been using for many years and I trust. I know how it performs and it does a great job. We're using the Comfort Bat 38 for the floor joists.
Oh, wow.
We'll also be using that just below the roof deck in between the rafters. And then we're filling all the wall cavities with the Comfort Bat as well. And then once we seal up the house with our zip, we're adding a layer of comfort board to the outside.
Oh, wow. Dang, this is going to be really well insulated.
Yeah, yeah.
Dang, that's serious business, isn't it?
That's excellent. It's
And
gonna be a
I think
tight
it's
house.
interesting that your windows are original, it looks like, to the house, right? Single pane,
Yeah.
aluminum windows.
Yeah.
Steve, talk to us about the difference between a 70s single pane aluminum and, do you know what this product is? He's
Yeah,
working
hell and heaven. No, so, single pane, obviously, there's no thermal value. You can see they're cloudy. And, those old aluminum windows, the operation is probably failing.
Terrible, yeah.
Just about every piece of it. But, one of the things that's really interesting, I always talk about, you can learn a lot from old buildings. If we look up here, you would have expected this corner to see a lot more water damage
Yeah.
and such. Those overhangs, but
Yeah.
to the tune of like
That's right.
2 feet or so, really did a good job protecting the bones of this house.
Yeah, it is
and
surprising.
appears in pretty decent shape. As bad as the siding and the aesthetics look, the structure underneath seems to be in really good
I
shape.
think the other saving grace on this house, if you agree, is the stilts aspect, right? There was no splashback happening here because the water, when it came down here, if it's splashed back, there's nothing to hit. The bottom of the house is 8 feet high,
Yeah.
whereas you think about a house that you might do in New Jersey that has an in-ground foundation, the rim board on that house
With the bush in front of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the sprinkler hitting it potentially, whereas this house being way up in the air. That is interesting to see. Although you've seen some bugs. Have you seen any termites issues at
So
all?
there's been termites, definitely bugs, lots of places. There's been some mice that have come in, and we actually even had a raccoon in the attic.
Oh, Texas.
Like a zoo.
He carefully took one of the pieces of siding off at the chimney and just went right in.
Oh my gosh.
I noticed
Houses
that-
need to breathe.
Resourceful.
I noticed a couple spots where the cedar was getting a lot of water up on the roof.
Yeah.
It was cupping a lot, which almost increased the airflow, which probably did you some favors, not having sheathing or some sort of house wrap behind there that was going to trap that moisture.
I think that's right, because moisture is definitely getting in behind that siding, but it's allowing itself to dry out.
Yeah. So you've lived here for 4 years in, a 70s built house. I always love the car analogies. Like if you went to the dealership and bought a 1970s car, it might be really cool and retro, but it certainly wouldn't be comfortable. It wouldn't be efficient. It probably wouldn't be as reliable or last as long as a new built car. I think we need to come back and check with you and your family and say, hey, all that time and effort you spent on really insulating well with rock wool and using zip for air tightness and using these EAS European triple glazed windows, was it worth it? And what did the house change from your 4 years living here in a 70s house to not just a 2023 house, but you're building to 2030 standards or beyond, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what all this effort is going to produce and how it will affect our comfort overall, because that's really the main thing for us. It has not been comfortable living here. Yeah. There's hot spots and cold spots in the house. There's a lot of dust because it's not airtight. So yeah, let's definitely check it out.
I have some personal experience with that, Daniel, because I lived in a 70s house as well for a long time that I did a pretty light remodel on. And then I built a new house with really the same methods you're using. And man, what a game changer for my family in terms of comfort, certainly in terms of durability, and definitely in terms of indoor air quality. I've got a daughter that had asthma. And as I look back and realize, oh my gosh, I had her living in a leaky house with carpet in her bedroom, a terrible HVAC system. I didn't do my daughter any favors in that old house.
Just suck on this bag of dust before you go to bed.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
You're describing my exact living situation right now, so thank you for that.
Let me call Camille when I'm done here. We'll have a conversation.
Daniel, we have a mock-up here. Before we get into the details, one of the things I want to point out to the viewers is you can never go wrong building a mock-up. Even if you're a builder that's been doing it 30 years, like seeing it, doing it slow, checking every step by steps, trying to understand, is there a way I can improve that step? Is there a way maybe I could change this, do it faster? I mean, they're invaluable. So
I agree.
It's you get to, every time we do a mock-up, I learn something. Right, so obviously we have our Schuco UPVC windows here. These are a triple glazed unit. European Architectural Supplies, the source. This is a fixed unit. You can tell because you don't see the sash inset inside the frame there. So the fixed units are nice and easy to install. I see you set the outside face flush with the air barrier here.
Yeah.
Which that's really good practice. I like to have those coplanar. It makes the air sealing and everything very, very simple. I do see something here that I haven't seen yet. VP flashing tape, which I'm assuming stands for vapor permeable.
That's right.
Right, so this is the new zip tape that somehow you got your hands on, but okay, we'll run with it. And I'll make a call later. But no, I mean, you can see that it's nice and clean. Nice and clean to me means that you're not really have been challenged in doing this. The one thing that when you're installing these windows, you have to pay close attention to is the weeps. You don't want to block them. You either sill below or sill above, obviously.
Take a minute to talk about that, because that is something new that I don't think a lot of people have seen before, Steve. With these European windows, most of the time we're not taping the bottom flange of American windows, and I see you've got your full flex, what's the flexible tape called? I'm blank. Stretch tape rather, on the sill. So this is a continuous sill pan, and I noticed on your sills that you're sloping the sills, the carpenters are.
That's right.
But yet you're taping that bottom, so that's a little bit different. What do you think about that, Steve?
So understand that there's two pieces of tape here, but it's a two-stage air barrier continuity assembly, right? So this underlying tape here, what that's basically doing is, it would be nice and easy if we just had sheathing going across the wall, but we don't. We cut a hole into it. So somehow now I have to create a preparation where I can bridge from the window to my air barrier. And so what Daniel has done here, and we can take a look on the inside, he's lined the opening with zip. And so that zip basically turns the corner. And if you understand that this is his primary air barrier, then this is just the detail that connects sheet to sheet. It just happens to be that one sheet is perpendicular there.
It's a great explanation.
So now you have that air barrier continuity to the rough opening. Right. Now you insert the window and I have to bridge this gap. And to bridge that gap, Zip has made it real easy. They've come out with a vapor permeable flashing tape. Now, I see we're going to do here a barrier system, right? When you're dealing with windows, you have the choice between a water managed and a barrier system. A barrier system says, I'm going to do a really good job doing this. No water's going to get in. If it does get in, the vapor permeable tape with a sloped sill there, you might get a little bit of water pooling there, but it has the ability to dry out. Now in your climate, it's good because God has given us an oven.
Yeah.
Right. Baking space.
Yeah.
So if you put this in Louisiana or Miami, then maybe we would have changed that detail a little bit. They get a lot more rain.
That's a good point.
Right. But down here, I think this is a detail that's very well tuned to the environment that it's being put in.
And I want to make mention too, Steve, these, you talked about those weeps. I've been to the factory, I know you have too, where some of these European windows are made. They're made to a really high standard. These are not cheap PVC windows like we're used to seeing at the home center in America. This is unplasticized polyvinyl chloride, UPVC, incredibly strong, really well built. And if water were to get into this gap between the glass and this gasket, this weep is really designed to let anything that gets in weep out. So when Daniel builds his assembly, he's going to make sure that these weeps are visible, but then he's covered that bottom because in American style windows, we're worried that maybe the frame would leak, it would get into the subsill. We want a place for that water to come out. This is a hard one for me to wrap my brain around when I first started seeing these and using these windows. And this detail will change depending on the level or quality of window that you put in. If you're using a less expensive window, a window that maybe you're more concerned might have some problems, you would want to let that water out and do a water managed system rather than a water barrier system like we've done here. And you also mentioned our rain level. We're around 30 inches or so of rain a year here in Austin, so we're not desert dry at under 20 inches. We're also not tropical, Portland Northwest where they get 40 inches. I don't even know what are you guys in New Jersey? How much rain do you get a year annually?
I don't know that.
Some of it comes in a frozen state too.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right, great point.
But one of the things that I really like that I've grown to appreciate about European windows is in everything I do, I tell everybody, as the architect, do your job, as the contractor, do your job, as the window manufacturer, do your job.
Yeah.
And they do, right? They give really good thermal performance. You're probably upwards of R7 plus here.
Wow.
Right, for triple glazed. They have their own water managed system. If water does get in here, they have a path for it to get out. They're not saying, hey, you worry about it. No, they say, we'll worry about our window, and you can put it in confidence.
I'll also point out there's a weep at the top here as well, so if water gets on top of the frame,
it can drip out, right. And that probably also helps pressure equalize that chamber around the system so you don't get a siphoning effect where water gets in there, but it can't fall out because it can't be.
It's a great point.
It can't be extracted there. But
now you guys both know a little bit about the Ziegert system you're about to use. I don't know a thing about it. Will you explain, Daniel, from the zip forward, how the insulation and siding, and also I'm curious what you're doing for brick molding or what you're going to do to trim these windows on the outside.
Yeah, sure. So, one of the sort of hallmarks of passive building is a continuous insulation, exterior insulation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to be putting the rock wool comfort board on the outside, and we'll need something to attach our siding to. So what we're going to use is this system from Longboard where they've got these standoffs, and these come in a variety of lengths depending on how much insulation you want.
Okay.
And the beauty of these, they're made out of metal, so they're very durable. But metal can transfer thermal energy. So they've got this here, which acts as a thermal break. So this attaches directly to our zip.
Okay.
And then we have these hat channels that then screw into that. And you can see, and then it depending on the thickness of your insulation, you have at minimum 3/4 of an inch of an air gap there.
Sweet.
And then the siding itself is an aluminum siding that then gets attached to that.
Oh my gosh, that's
run
going to be
vertically.
gorgeous. So that's a black aluminum vertical, is that what you're doing?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
And
that's going to look
The beauty of
sweet.
this is you can put this on and you can simply rotate that
Okay.
and get the different orientation. So if you had a house where somewhere I have vertical, some places I have horizontal, you don't have to change your system. You just simply rotate this block in place.
And those are different blocks for different thicknesses of exterior insulation?
They have different leg dimensions.
Okay, gotcha.
So this goes from anywhere from like 1.5 inches. I think the ones I saw are like 12 inches. Consequently,
Oh, yeah. There
Here's
you
an
go.
example of one that's a little beefier.
yeah, and it's adjustable. So you have like a micro adjust for about 1 inch or so.
Oh, wow. So if your wall was
If
wavy.
the wall is wavy, or if you
Right.
want to pick it up, or if you want to just adjust your rain
That's
screen
really
to
nice.
be 1/2 inch or 3/4.
We should make a video on that when you get there, because I think that'd be really cool to string line this old wall, see how straight it is, and that micro adjustment may come into play, right?
It's definitely going to come into play because these walls are not super straight.
In terms of sequencing with these posts, I imagine if you had a very deep insulation, you would put the posts on first, but because you have only 1.5 inches, is there an argument to be made for putting the bats up first and cutting a hole, or how do you decide what's more efficient there?
Yeah, interestingly, you do put these on first, and this pops off with some effort.
Oh, so you can just use that
Yeah,
as a
and it's-
template to knock out
It's got
the
a little
hole?
saw, a rectangular saw blade that sticks inside here.
No way.
And you literally just push the, you push on the comfort board, pull that saw off, so then you actually have a piece of insulation inside.
You have a plug of insulation in there. How cool is that?
Wow, that was not the answer I was expecting. Very clever.
Yeah, no, they've thought of
I'm
it all.
sold.
Yeah,
Way to
they've thought of it
go,
all.
Zach.
So they don't on the shorter one. They don't,
Yeah.
but on the posts they do.
That's
This is
really
called
neat.
the hitch system.
You might almost make up the money and the added insulation in labor by going with the one you can put the saw on.
Yeah.
That's
so you
right.
can see it's hollow on the inside.
Right.
How cool is that? Let's walk around the side. I want to show the inside of your mock-up too, Daniel, before we stop the video. Because if you've not seen these European style windows, they are a little bit different where you've got this clip system going on.
That's right.
Talk me through how that's been. So have you installed these before?
I have, yeah. So, you know, traditionally we're used to seeing windows with the flange, a nail flange, and you just push it on from the outside, nail it on, screw it on, whatever. Here, it doesn't have that flange, so you can kind of set it in the plane wherever you want.
That's nice.
And these clips attach to the side of the frame, and you space them out evenly, and then they just screw into the inside of the rough opening.
And Steve, are you typically bending these back and screwing them down? Are you
can
cutting them?
bend them back. Most of the time, we just simply cut them off. I noticed that you screwed as far inward as you can, so you can grind them or cut them. The one thing I recently learned about grinding that a really experienced carpenter, the guy out at the Riverside project, Kurt, he said if you grind it, you want to make sure you have a piece of cardboard here, because the grinding chips, he goes, you'll be nicking up the window or putting little scratches in your glass.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need to hold up that shield while you're grinding.
Yeah, that is a great tip. But that's right. So we will be air sealing the inside here, and at these clips is always tricky to get right.
Yeah.
So I am trying to get my screws as far in as I can, so I have as little effort as necessary to get past that.
One of the products I saw recently down at one of our jobs with Jake Bruton, he used, Sega has their caulking sealant, Meptel or whatever it is.
Yep.
And so he put in some backer rod. They did that Metal or Meptel, I don't know what the name is. We can look it up and put it in there. But he basically went over the hangers and air
interesting.
sealed it, and they cut them. So he basically encapsulated
Yeah.
it in that sealant all around the windows. It looks really good.
That's pretty cool. I like it. Steve, why don't we close out the video? And since Rockwool sponsored us, I'm curious from your perspective. You've used it a long time.
Yep.
What do you think the big benefits for Rockwool are?
I mean, the nice thing about Rockwool is they have a nice wide spectrum of materials, right? So we can do exterior insulation, we can do interior, we can do stuff on the roof, we can do stuff in the bellies on the floor. They have acoustical insulation for the inside, so it's kind of like I can work with the rep and we can outline the whole house in Rockwool materials, right? They're real easy to work with. The stuff doesn't burn, right? I mean, that's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
And it performs really well, and it doesn't sustain mold growth.
Yep. Well, I think, Daniel, for your house here in Texas, where we have a lot of exterior bug activity, a lot of opportunity for pests on the outside to try and work their way in, I think your remodel is really genius, where you're using an insulation that really is going to repel those pests. You've got a vapor open rain screen assembly, so water will be able to get right out. You could, in theory, dry through it, just like your vapor permeable tape. You've got a vapor permeable exterior insulation, which works really well in northern climates as well as southern climates.
Yep.
And lastly, I love the chainsaw retrofit, where you're going directly from your wall to your roof line. There's no way those raccoons are getting in anymore.
That's right.
There's no way mice are getting in. And the other big one for us is cockroaches. Cockroaches are ridiculous down here in Texas.
Yeah.
And so if we can build a house that's less prone to bugs getting in without having to use a bunch of chemicals on the outside, that's a huge win for us, for our families, I think. Daniel, great job out here, brother. Really appreciate it. Steve, thanks for coming into town.
No.
If you don't know these guys, they're shooting videos at their job sites. Zach with Detmore Home Improvement in New Jersey. Steve from all over the country, really. Steve Basic Architect. We'll put their Instagram handles on there too, so you can follow those guys on Instagram. And go follow Daniel and I on Instagram too. We're gonna be coming back to Daniel's house for a couple more videos in the future. So we'll keep up on this outside in remodel, which is a genius idea. I'd never seen this before, Daniel. Thanks for the tour, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure.
Big thanks to Rockwolf for sponsoring today's video. If you're not currently a subscriber, I'm gonna go even though we got a circular saw going off. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.